Welcome to a special edition of Unboxing Logistics. I'm your host, Lori Boyer from EasyPost. And today we are going to be talking about a big event that just happened last week, Parcel Forum. Really exciting. We were the AI in Logistics sponsor of the Parcel Forum show. And I had the absolute pleasure and privilege of speaking with the one and only, the Unboxing Logistics godfather, Tom Butt, and we were able to talk about AI. So we're really excited today because we're just going to give you a few little things, what we heard at Parcel Forum, what all the scuttlebutt is, and kind of just some of the highlights of the things we talked about at AI. Tom, before we jump in, reintroduce yourself. I know that you are a classic favorite here at the Unboxing Logistics family, but for those who happen to have missed one of your appearances, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So appreciate the privilege of coming back. I always love talking on the podcast here. A little bit about myself, Tom Butt, a senior manager here at EasyPost of AI and analytics. I've been in the operations and technology space going on, 15 plus years now, and have worked with major retail organizations to come up with strategies to leverage technology to better execute operations, specifically for supply chain, direct to consumer, and with EasyPost here in the parcel space. So have the privilege of diving in headfirst to the AI topic, which seems to be all the buzz these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's just start there. What was the buzz you heard on the floor of Parcel Forum? What was everybody talking about? Doesn't have to be AI, just, what were you hearing from everybody in the industry?
Yeah, some key themes and just talking, random one-offs at the conference were around uncertainty in the supply chain space, the ever-growing complexity, the ever-growing expectations of consumers in terms of how they get their packages, the different methods that they want them. Everyone seems to want everything right now. They want it fast. They want it cheap. And so the parcel space in particular, a lot of the shippers are getting squeezed to do more with less. And it really bodes well for AI. And everyone in the AI space was talking and kind of comparing notes and saying, this AI thing, is it a buzzword? How are you guys using it? When is the starting gun going to go off? And so we talked about that during our session.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are similar things that I heard in conversations I had. Everyone's kind of in the same place where there's a lot going on right now. And as we're just about kicking off peak season here for 2025, uncertainty. I love that you said that because that's kind of in the name of the game is everyone's not exactly sure what's going to happen. And absolutely right. I felt like as well, there were a lot of people who are kind of like, yeah, I know AI, like I should be using it and it's awesome, but I don't really know how. And I don't really, there's a lot of confusion around where and how and to implement AI. Did you hear that as well?
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of tools out there. It seems like every single platform you go into is like, oh, try this new AI feature, whether or not that's something like a Google Gemini, or if that's, just Chat GPT, or could be anything from, summarizing calls and taking notes. So I think a lot of it is there's just this amorphous, like, hey, AI can help us, but how?
Yeah.
And so what we were really talking about during the session that we had was, start small, start very targeted, and say, how can I use AI to help me with a very specific problem? Outline your objectives, outline expectations of what you're looking to do. And by doing that, you can be a little bit more targeted, a little bit more strategic about how you use it.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved hearing people talk about AI is really effective when you start with your problem. So just what you said, like, don't just try to squeeze AI into a pigeonhole just because you want to use AI. But if you have a problem, which I don't know if we ever don't have a problem, in our industry.
Right.
There's always
Right.
something.
That's one of the things I love about the operation space. You don't always get faster. You can always get cheaper. You can always provide a better customer experience, and that frictionless buying experience. If you're going direct to consumer, or if you're doing B2B, your customers, you're looking to just make things just sharper, crisper, more clear, those sorts of things.
Yeah. I also, somebody mentioned being able to see your ROI, right? I think that that's another critical one when you are looking for AI tools. You should be able to measure if you're saving time or saving money, things like that, so that it's not just a buzzword, not just hype.
Yeah, and with that, one of the things we talked about was creating a scorecard, looking at it, breaking it down by different dimensions, speed, cost, quality, what you're doing to support sales, and what you're doing to help support the customer experience. Uh, so, come at it with a kind of a framework that you can assess and say, hey, for each of those dimensions, how far am I off from where I would expect to be or want to be? And then that's going to help you prioritize what sorts of things to go after first. So again, just set up a framework, come up with an intention, and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the areas that I felt like our session attendees were really interested in was when you talked about kind of the specific areas or pain points. So Tom here at EasyPost deals with helping our customers with AI. And so he actually kind of sees on the front line a lot of where they are using AI. How does it work? How does it not work? Where do they see hiccups? So the audience was really interested in hearing what are the kind of pain points that you're seeing where AI is being effective, where you are being able to use that scorecard and kind of track things. Can you share that with our Unboxing Logistics family as well?
Yeah, for sure. So again, with the uncertainty in supply chain, all of the factors to consider, we are seeing just this continued push for carrier diversification.
Hmm.
Carriers are offering different service levels. There's a lot of different moving parts and pieces. And so with that, we're seeing customers use AI. We have a specific tool that helps people sort through all of the I'll call it granular or very particular instances. So of how to get things to customers faster, how to get things to customers more cheaply. And in particular, kind of getting that intersection of both faster and cheaper. So we're using AI to just crunch through tons of different data points, billions and billions of shipments. And what that's allowing customers to do is, again, get the best of both worlds. In the past, it was either cost or time in transit that you'd be looking to optimize for. But we're seeing our customers use AI to really get the best of both worlds. And all of the different factors to consider, different zip codes to deliver to, surcharges, dynamic landscape of carrier rates. AI is really helping in that space. There's also maybe a little bit more, I call it sentiment analysis. So people looking at summarizing customer experience, going through loading their customer feedback to suss out key themes of what might be going on. That's going to allow you to have a better pulse on where your opportunities might lie. So there's that hard, like, hey, we're going to go after these specific metrics and targets, but there's also this distillation of sentiment that you can get to that is going to also give you kind of a roadmap for how you'd navigate the parcel space, especially as we get into the peak season.
So, okay. So, what I was hearing was really good uses of AI when it comes to kind of carrier selection, route selection, service level selection to make sure that you can optimize for both cost and speed. And so, when you said consumer sentiment, so kind of how people are feeling about how your customers are feeling about the experience that they're getting, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're loading customer comments, or if you're using AI to do, um, you know, uh, customer experience or customer contact, customer support calls, you can use that AI to kind of layer in and analyze that to give you summaries and things of that nature. I know in our sales opportunities, we're using a product called Gong.
Hmm.
that allows us to make sure that we're capturing exactly what the customer is looking to get at. Allows us to reflect on how do we best serve that customer. So that's something that can be extended across AI tools.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something as well. People we had questions about which tools do we recommend. Feel free to reach out. I have some lists of tools that a lot of companies are using. Of course, here at EasyPost, we love our Luma tool for checking your that kind of time in transit spend, figuring out carriers. Carriers are our what we live and breathe every day. So that's where our expertise is. But there are a lot of tools that are really great out there across the spectrum. Tom, do you have any specific stories or examples you can share, maybe of customers or people you've talked to on, their experience going through implementing AI, what that looked like, and how they were able to, create their scorecard or do anything like that?
We're getting a lot of customers that are looking at how can we use AI to make better predictions about what carriers maybe that I'm not using today, but carriers that I should be using. So we have customers where they're maybe just using or a couple of carriers, so UPS, FedEx. But they really, Amazon is a new player in the space in terms of expansion from just their in-house networks. So we've used AI to ask, um, basically our customer data to say, hey, are there, um, if we brought Amazon in, or if we brought another carrier and maybe a regional carrier like Better Trucks or On Track, what would it look like? And what types of shipments would we use, or what types of shipments would best be leveraged on those different carriers, maybe that we don't have yet today. So it's a little bit of a scenario builder that allows people to kick the tires on how they can expand or how they can augment their carrier network, the impact that that might have. Um, and it's really looking at every single individual package that you had shipped in, like a last 30-day period, um, and give you the insight to say, hey, this is the value that it could provide if you bring it in. So we're augmenting, maybe an analysis that you did in the past. We're using lots of different data points. We're using the AI to make recommendations on how you could augment your network.
Do you see a specific, like, kind of general percentage of, how much they can reduce in parcel spend? Um, eh, I know that obviously numbers are going to be totally different from customer to customer, but are we talking 10%? Are we talking 1%? Are we talking 6,942%?
Sure. I'm gonna give you a generic number, wide range. We're seeing anything from a couple percentage points. So, but for somebody that's shipping a lot of volume, that few percentage might be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. But we do see some customers, depending on, maybe they're only using a single carrier right now and they'd want to expand to a multi-carrier service, they could save up to 25%.
Yeah.
So it is quite a range. It kind of depends on where you're starting from. If you're already highly optimized or using AI to some extent already, there might not be as much juice for the squeeze. But if you are coming from a place where you haven't really touched your network in a while, and there's lots of opportunity to expand, to make adjustments, we are seeing it in that 20-25% range.
Yeah, I had a great conversation at Parcel Forum with a woman where she has a flower selling business, and she ships about 10 to 15,000 packages a month. But she's always used a single carrier, right? And for me, it's just like, whoa, 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 like so much opportunity. If you are listening and you happen to be somebody who's really stuck with one or two carriers, that is a big signal that you probably have a good opportunity to really optimize your carrier mix. Now, Tom, I get a lot of questions. So, and this was a question she had for me. I'm scared that if I move away from a single carrier, that I'm not going to be able to get good rates because I put all my volume together so that I can negotiate rates. How do you respond to that question?
Sure. I think we can still look to use carriers in a lot of the instances to make sure that you're getting volume discounts. That said, there may be a subset of your shipments where we can start small and we can look at how much volume would be shifted for things like 2-day or next day shipments. So we can kind of adjust the amount of volume that you may be looking to shift or to expand to multi-carrier. It doesn't have to be, hey, all of a sudden we add another carrier. It's 50% has to go this way. The other 50% has to go the other way. So you maybe lose those volume discounts. So you can start small and you can start optimizing subsets of your packages. Maybe you're getting the most customer complaints on those expedited services. You could optimize with AI that just those expedited services, save the bulk of your shipments to go through your main carrier. But I'll just reiterate, if you are in a single carrier, even if you're getting those discounts, you are at the whim of that carrier and any sort of surcharges or price changes that they have. There are instances where, if it's a unionized environment, maybe the union goes on strike and then you're scrambling to go other places. So there's that risk mitigation factor. But you don't have to go, dive head first. You can start to dip your toes in the water and maintain your volume discounts and go from there.
I love that. And I love the idea of starting with somewhere you have a problem. So with AI in general, this is what I'm hearing. And, as I've spoken to different experts, start with the problem. Again, always start with the problem. So if you have, exactly like Tom was saying, maybe a certain area where you're getting delivery windows are missed by 15% or more in a certain region or a certain lane. First of all, you can use AI tools to kind of determine where you are having problem spots. But even if all you do is know that you have a problem spots, you're probably not going to get much worse. So start by experimenting with some different tools or options, maybe different carriers here. And, when you have a lot of data around it, that makes it so it's a lot easier for you to see, if you're able to improve even 10% or something like that. I love starting with that small, data-rich problem. That to me is the easiest way to kind of segue into making a little bit of a change. Another area though, Tom, I hear is like maybe it's repetitive or slow. Maybe you've got a lot of manual stuff going on. Those are other opportunities for AI. Is that what you've heard or seen as well?
Yeah, I think those decision points, where you're having to adjust one-offs here, one-offs there, and it's consuming a lot of your time. I like to frame things in the Pareto sense of it. So maybe you only have 5% of your packages that are late, but those may be taking up, 95% of your time
Yeah.
to break from the 80-20 rule to go to the 95-5 rule or the 90-10 rule. So a lot of times when you are having those instances, you can pop AI and look at your shipments, see what some of the exceptions may be, see if there's opportunities for delays within your carrier network. Where are those occurring? Is it pre-transit exception, so you're printing a label but it's not scanning into the carrier network? You can take a look at those types of shipments. You can have AI analyze and say, hey, are those happening for a certain carrier set, or are those happening kind of across the board? You may have different solutions that you need to go after, but AI is going to help you identify where those exceptions are, and potentially make some recommendations on how to address those things. I know that we talk specifically about our AI solution, but you can pop things into Chat GPT as well, and ask more strategic questions there. So there are some things where you can start to at least generate a framework of how you want to approach a problem, and then use it as you kind of go through the discovery journey. I know that there's buzzwords past. I know data science was a big one a couple years ago. Obviously, analytics. You've got cloud. Those are all things that we see as iterative. So you still need a lot of those things. You need cloud to be able to aggregate all your data so that AI can analyze it. But I think in general, again, you can use AI kind of throughout that discovery process, and you can come up with the scientific method to, solve your problem. Again, start with that problem statement, but then kind of step through that journey with AI as a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted just to jump into mistakes that we commonly see, and I'm going to kick us off. And then, Tom, you can share any other mistakes you see. But one of the big mistakes when it comes to AI is underestimating the importance of your data being good data and clean data. Um, do you have any recommendations? You're just a data guy in general. How do you make sure that the data you're using or, that you have a single source of truth even because a lot of times different teams are using different data. What is the importance of data? Why is that important? And how can you kind of try to make sure that you're getting clean data?
Sure. And I'll use the played out mantra, garbage in, garbage out. I think, most of our listeners have probably heard of that. Um, we have seen AI be very effective at anomaly detection. So, for example, there may be true outliers in your data, but if you're pumping a data set into AI and asking, hey, what are some of my statistical outliers? You can also use AI to simulate supplemental data. So if you only have, a light amount of data, you can use AI to generate additional data sets that you can reference. But using it for anomaly detection is something to at least get you down the journey of seeing how clean is your data. And if you can just highlight, things that may be, a couple standard deviations outside of an expected value. I know for us, we've got some cardinalization software that's out there, but you can ask, hey, does this data look clean? Like, is it something that needs, is it something that we should adjust or we need to augment to be a little bit more robust? But you can use some AI tools out there to assess that and to just ask, hey, are there opportunities for me to clean this data up?
Yeah. So use AI to kind of make sure you've got the clean data as well. I love that. One of the great things about AI is the fact that it sort of takes these really technical, difficult things and makes it easy for just regular people like me to understand it. So there are tools. Again, if you need specific names of tools, I'm not going to jump into them all here because I'll forget some of my favorites. But um, there are tools that help you look at your data and give you kind of the probability that maybe you've got some red flags in there. What other mistakes do you see, though, Tom, when people are trying to implement AI?
To go back to not having an intention, not having a process, I think
Yeah, you see a sparkly and you're like, "Ooh, that sounds good.
yeah,
Let's put that in."
that's a big one. I think the other one is just not getting started, right? So to say, hey, I don't know this, we'll kind of wait for others to get this figured out. I can tell you right now, there's not going to be a starting gun. And those that adopt AI and start to build it into some methodologies, build it into frameworks, are going to have a head start and a leg up. Those are the customers that are going to say, "Hey," or excuse me, the users that are going to say, "Hey, um, what happened? Why are we so far behind our competitors? Why are we losing market share? Why are we not as competitive from a cost perspective?" Um, the other thing we do see a lot of people say, "Well, I don't know exactly what the AI is doing, so I'm not going to use it." Right.
Here. Mhm.
So for example, you see that the AI is getting you better results. It's very good at, you have an objective statement. It will optimize to drive toward that objective. So that could be, cheaper shipping, faster shipping in the parcel space. Um, but I think um, if you don't have a process to start to incorporate AI, and you don't have a trust that the results are going to be out there, those results are going to be formatted to just say, hey, this is what I'm achieving. A lot of times people want to see the exact how. And sometimes AI isn't as great at doing that. Uh,
Especially when you get into the data teams. When you get the ops teams that
correct.
are like, "Well, let me see this," because we're used to, I say we, like ops teams.
Yeah.
I'm your buddy. I'm not really ops teams, but yeah, you need to know that people feel that need to like have control, I guess.
Yeah. There is a little bit of just let the AI make some decision. Again, sometimes it's not going to be able to explain that the reason it chose this particular shipment method. You may have to go back and say, well, there was a holiday here, or we're not seeing this statistical performance in aggregate from one carrier in one particular lane. So we do see a lot of people wanting to be very prescriptive and to basically have the AI do what they were doing in the way that they expect to do it. Um, and this is a non-linear jump, so it's not going to be like, hey, it's going to do things exactly the same as I did it. Maybe I had a really complex rule set that I built out. Um, it may just make decisions on factors that there's so many things that it can crunch. It's not going to give you the exact secret sauce, um, but it'll be a good tasting sauce.
Even calculators are like that. If you're adding 324 plus 192, it just gives you a number. It doesn't say, "Oh, I carried this one and I did."
Correct.
And so at some point we had to kind of trust the technology that it's working correctly. I that's a really hard one for some of us. So love that idea. Anything else there on mistakes? Otherwise, I want to hear kind of just your takeaways on what people should do. I love the idea as well. I don't wanna miss this, that people sometimes just don't do anything, like analysis paralysis or whatever. Trust that look, when you start using AI, there's probably gonna be some hiccups. There's gonna be times that it didn't work the way you thought, or there's gonna be times that you didn't realize or you didn't understand how to use it. That should not keep people from starting and implementing because, as you said, it's already started. You said the gun's not gonna go the gun's gone off. People are running to and the only way for us to learn and to figure out where it is gonna be implemented is to actually kinda dive in here. So I love that point. Tom, any other mistakes? If not, what are kind of takeaways of, you know, what can they do to get started this quarter? Any like, go out and do this?
Yeah, I think part of it, and we talked about this during our session, was leadership. A lot of people are using AI in their day to day, but a lot of times leadership just doesn't really know. Again, to go back to the starting gun hasn't started or hasn't gone off. I think part of it is as a leader, you're expected to have a vision for some of this stuff. So some of it is just um, making sure that there's an owner of this and calling out that there's a responsibility from a leadership perspective to go after and develop an AI strategy. A, a strategy doesn't have to be perfect, but if you have some sort of framework, some sort of vision for how your team can use the AI tools, um, you're gonna just be able to iterate on that. You're gonna be able to build on it, learn from your mistakes, kind of go through that process of discovery. So I think again, just not having a leadership vision is a big mistake.
Yeah. In our session, we talked about there was a study that was done recently, and it is leaders. So if you're leaders, you're getting called out a little bit here. It is leadership that tends to pull back, where team members tend to want to use AI a lot more and leaders get a little bit more hesitant. So it's a good reminder. Actually, right before this podcast, I had a meeting with my team. I'm a leader of a team as well, and we were discussing AI tools and what we need to be using and how we can. And so make sure that you're bringing that to your team as a leader. That's a great point, Tom. Everyone, it was great talking about AI. Some big takeaways for me just from today, but also from Parcel Forum and from the session, is that we just got to get started. AI is not perfect yet. Okay. We haven't found like the silver bullet AI that does everything. But if you're not doing something, you're getting left behind. There are a lot of great tools out there. Um, but start with your problems. So if you're having a problem in the warehouse, look for a tool that's going to do something in the warehouse. If you're having carrier issues, or if you're wanting to really save some money on your carrier spend as we come through peak, we've got a lot of big surcharges and stuff. Look at tools where you can simulate that and figure that out. But just start and then figure out from there. That's my advice. That's really what I've been hearing is people are starting and seeing some really good wins. Any other takeaways from you, Tom?
No, don't let perfect get in the way of better. It's
Love
I
that, a
think
Tomism. Don't let
yeah,
perfect get in the way of better.
yeah. And again, just build on successes. If you can get some quick wins, prove ROI. basically market that with your teams and say, congratulate people if they're being creative and how they're using AI in their day to day, and just build on the early wins. And I think as this comes along, AI is so new. It's a space where we're all going to be in this together, kind of learning as we go. But it should be a really exciting time. It should be a transformative time for our industry and society in general.
Fantastic. Well said. AI is awesome. Give it a try. Just do something. Don't let, as Tom said, don't let perfect get in the way of better. So love that. If you are using some great AI tools, I would love for you to share. You can throw them in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or if you're on social media. Feel free to email. If you have questions around AI tools, as Tom said, we're all in this together. So let's work together to figure out what, is working for you. Tom, thanks again. Thanks for speaking with me at Parcel Forum. Thanks for being here and just being such a great supporter of the podcast. And it's been wonderful having you.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Lori, and I'm excited to see what people come back to us with. So appreciate it.
Awesome. We'll see you all next time.